meeting to order, and Mike, you lead us in the pledge, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Get organized. All right, so the first item on our agenda is to approve minutes as usual. And the first minutes I have are of our work session on March 28th.
I move that those minutes be accepted as written.
Second.
So motion by Bill, second by Mike. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next, we have the minutes of the non-public work session on March 28th.
Make a motion, we accept the minutes as written.
Second.
I knew that. It's John makes the motion, seconded by Neil. There's no discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And finally, we have the regular board meeting minutes of March 28th.
Make a motion to approve.
Moved by Mike,
Second.
seconded by Bill. All those in favor?
Aye.
Our next meetings will be on April 25th and May 9th, and as usual, the work review sessions prior to the meetings start at 5. All of these meetings are held at the town hall unless otherwise posted. Weather observations for March are available in the town hall. Anyone wishing to be listed on the agenda should notify the town hall before noon on the Friday before the meeting. Road bans for the town are in effect through May 1st. We have a request for reappointment as a member of the Plymouth Energy Commission from Margaret C. Mumford, who has written to us and said, "I'm requesting reappointment to the Plymouth Energy Commission for a 3-year term. I feel that given my involvement in energy issues in my professional work and my personal belief in the importance of energy issues, I have much to contribute. I'd like to continue to serve the town by active membership on the commission. Thank you for your consideration. Sincerely, Margaret, a.k.a. Maggie Mumford." Do we have a motion to reappoint Maggie to the Energy Commission?
I move that we reappoint Margaret Mumford to the Energy Commission.
All right,
I would second that.
so we've got a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion?
I think it's a good idea.
Mr. Courier thinks it's a good idea.
Public input.
Yeah.
Oh, me too.
And Mr. McCormick does as well. Oh, and Maggie's here. I didn't even see. And I've been on the Plymouth, or at least I've been the selectman's rep to the Plymouth Energy Commission the last few years, and Maggie does a great job and is a great contribution to it. So I think it'll be wonderful to have her on for another 3 years. And if there is no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And there's probably, oh, yeah, here's the thing to sign, clip off of it. Somebody's got those fancy paper clips. I'll pass over committee reports because Mike has been in here so often that he shouldn't have to sit through that if he doesn't want to. And I know how expensive Jack can be, so why don't we jump right to them?
Oh, 200, that's all?
So our next item then is to talk to Attorney McCormick and Mr. Courier about finally accepting the skate park, and I see we have a draft deed here, and I guess,
Mr. Conklin, for the record, there's a bunch of documents. I'm leaving it back in McCormick on behalf of Local Motive LLC, that's a great name. The proposed grantor under a gift deed to the town. There are a number of closing documents that have been passed about, examined by the council and approved. And I have signed copies here tonight. Alex stopped by today, and catching him was the hardest part of this entire closing. He sat down for a quality 28 seconds, signed the documents, and off he went. I have signed versions for you. I have an original title insurance commitment. Your council asked if we could provide title insurance, and to have someone start that from scratch wouldn't be cost effective. So we did that, and we didn't charge for the title work, only the premium. Glad to do it. To make this easier, I have one document to be signed by the board. If it votes to do this, is a vote necessary?
I think we voted already, but,
I thought you did, but
No.
Oh, we have-
You still need to.
all right.
so if the vote is passed, I have one thing to be signed by the board, which is a closing statement. And the bottom line for the board in the town is $317.74, which represents the recording charge, the L-chip, and the title premium. So with no further ado, in anticipation of a positive vote, I'll pass over the commitment, the executed documents, and the closing statement.
Wonderful.
Very welcome. So if I can get that executed tonight, I can actually go so far as to prepare for recording. I understand that there may be several days lag time in producing a check for those funds. I understand that completely. But I may not even wait. I may advance that for the town just to get this done. So as far as I'm concerned, the documents are all complete.
And Mr. Chair, if I may, town council has reviewed everything.
Yeah,
And
and you've got the originals. These are copies for us.
Those are copies for your file. What'll happen is after I record, I'll put a binder together. I thought you should see that tonight, so you know a closing has occurred. But your role in this is very limited, being the grantee for no consideration.
All right, so, folks, we've got a settlement statement here that shows an expenditure by the town of $317, mostly for a title insurance policy, which is pretty routine, and the recording fee and the so-called L-chip, which the legislature will probably steal for some other purpose, right? But, so if anybody wants to...
I make a motion that we make the final approval for the town to take possession of the skate park.
All right. Do we have a second to that?
I'll second that.
All right, so we got a motion by Mike, seconded by Bill. Does anybody want to see any of this or have any further discussion on it? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, I think that's it. Big step, huh, in the right direction.
So if you execute that, Mr. Chairman,
The settlement statement, yeah.
I'll sign on behalf of the board.
I want to thank the board for this whole process. I think it's the right thing to do for a variety of reasons. Alex, of course, is glad to cooperate. Mike led the charge, so kudos to all of the town's people for doing this together. It's one more example of why we live here.
Kind of gives you each speak for it. The opening, we'll have the grand opening, we'll have you guys get them.
If you could
Maybe
get me
a back
one where the
brace.
wheels don't spin, because that's dangerous.
Yeah, throw in a back brace, we got a deal.
Airbag for Mike.
I still have mine from 1976, so
The one with the steel wheels.
it's plastic, that's all I know.
Thanks.
Mark Younger said he will get bubble wrap if anybody's interested.
Well, oh, what? Oh,
I can remember when we used to make them out of my sister's skates.
Poor girl. Who's the girl on skateboard?
thank you, Jack.
Indeed.
Appreciate
Thanks.
your help.
Thanks.
And I say this often, but
Pleasure, guys.
we thank Mike, too, for all of his effort on this thing, and I know that it will continue.
Well, we have
And,
a few more fundraising events that are going to include the interior of the park. So
right,
it's going to be quite a place when we finish with it.
wonderful thing. Well, thanks a lot for coming in. Nice to see you.
Thanks.
Night.
Yep, see you guys.
So with that taken care of, if I can find my agenda again, I guess what we skipped over was the committee reports.
Were you gonna have Maggie on Northern Pass update, or?
Oh, did I?
Yeah.
He's ready
I'm
to
sorry.
check.
Oh, right, I'm sorry. Maggie, would you like to talk to us about the Northern Pass? Yeah, I saw, pardon me? You don't mind one way or the other, do you?
Okay, so I'm coming in as a Plymouth citizen who happens to know a little more about what's going on with Northern Pass because of my role in one of the intervener groups as one of the southern non-abutting interveners, for those of you that weren't here at the last meeting. So I wanted to talk about what's going on right in the immediate future, and I don't know if it's even necessary because I don't know how much, I know Sharon's been working on this a lot, and I don't know if you're feeling up to date or not.
Well, a couple of us get a lot of the emails forwarded, and I've been looking through them, so I've sort of been keeping up with that.
Okay.
And I think that, although we didn't do it, I think that the designated representative of the group of towns from Franconia to Plymouth filed an, sort of a joinder with the request that the schedule be extended to 2 years. Isn't that right?
Yeah,
And I didn't recognize that person's name. I don't know who he is or how he got appointed, but
I had actually gone through today, because I've just been out straight on other stuff, so I don't know, Maggie may have more current information.
well, the website hadn't been updated lately at all until the past couple of days, but it's still not totally up to date. So what I saw from the intervener group that is relevant to the town of Plymouth is that Bristol, Easton, Franconia, Northumberland, Sugar Hill, Whitefield, Bridgewater, Littleton, New Hampton, and Woodstock, all of the other members of your intervener group, all filed to adjust the intervener groups. They don't want to be lumped together because they feel they have differing interests. So my concern about this is that one, that it's not clear from this what Plymouth's feeling about this. What is on the record is that Plymouth is opposed. If Plymouth is opposed, then really there should be activity within the intervener group. And if Plymouth is not opposed, then I think that should be public with the townspeople of Plymouth.
I thought we signed on to it.
well, what we did is we filed we voted that the town was opposed to the to the project as proposed, which is this whole, even, I don't know if we voted since they came up with the idea of burying a portion of it, but before that we did. I don't think we have since then. And I don't know if that changes anybody's mind or not.
Well, I don't know if it changes people's mind, but since it's I think it would behoove the select board to either become involved in the process or let the townspeople know why you're not involved in the process. And if you have delegates that are speaking for you, what are they empowered to do? Is the town attorney speaking for you? Is Sharon speaking for you? Because definitely there are members of this intervener group. This isn't just one person that put this forward. There are several attorneys for these towns involved. Each intervener group has one spokesperson that the SEC would like to hear from, but each intervener that has been granted intervener status, whether or not they're part of a group, can file testimony on their own and can be part of the discovery process. And my concern is the process is happening quite quickly, no matter which schedule you go by, and that's another issue. In that even by one of the extended schedules, you have to ask all your questions of discovery by May 15th. That's it. And so rather than get left in the dust and not have the questions that you want answered, asked in a public forum where they are submitting testimony, their answers are in effect legally binding as testimony, not as part of the discovery process, but later, if you file those answers to your discovery questions as testimony, that's legal, and they're held to that. So my concern is that, is that the town jump on board the process and become part of the process.
Anybody have any thoughts?
Well, I thought we were part of a group and we were all represented in one group and they had a spokesman.
Yeah, except nobody wants any of the groups to be the groups, so they're all objecting to the groups and asking to be either treated individually or with some other group. It's a big mess.
So basically, we would have to refile as intervening.
No.
No.
Right now, there are outstanding motions. There are people trying to join late. There are people in Holderness because the alternate plan calls for above-the-ground towers in Holderness. People in Holderness that stopped being interested because it didn't look like it was going there are now filing again. And the one question that's still up in the air, and Sharon, correct me if I'm wrong, is when the resolution of who's going to be in what intervener group will be. Theoretically, it might be tomorrow. It's going to be addressed tomorrow at a public hearing in Lincoln. That will probably be quite lengthy because there are 3 items on the docket, and the intervener groupings, that is one item. It says the decision will be made, quote, later. It doesn't say later that day, later that month, but my gut feeling is the intervener groups might stay the same, but intervener groups are talking, are communicating, are deciding who's filing what documents and what their stance is. Right now, this is a copy of Plymouth's intervener group. They're filing, objecting to the lumping of the interveners in one group. And they basically, the biggest argument is if a town has a lawyer and the lawyer's representing them, what position or what authority does that lawyer have in relationship to the SEC? The SEC wants one spokesperson. All of the lawyers at the pre-hearing conference that we attended all were objecting to that, saying, well, I can't represent my client to the best of my ability because you want me to represent this whole group. So that's why people are arguing about the intervener status. But you may find yourself, if this goes through, then Plymouth might be the only one remaining in that middle intervener group, and all the other people are
That would be
individual.
good, right? We'd be all alone.
Well, except then you really have to get to work, because
Yeah,
the
then we do
advantage
it.
of these is if you do agree with the stance of the other towns, folks are divvying up the work, deciding who's paying the lawyer, who's not paying a lawyer, and but all of that aside, if you get your philosophy decided, then there's still, it is only a month away when all questions for discovery might need to be in. There's one schedule proposed that would be longer than a month, but that's the time that you can ask any questions related to any issues of what will happen for how long if Main Street or any other street is dug up, and what happens afterwards, and who's responsible for fixing the road if they have to tear it up a second time. And any of those questions need to be part of the discovery process, and then everything that comes from the discovery process needs to be filed before the trial begins.
Let me ask you a question. As things stand, the questions that get asked by May 15th, can they be asked by the individual interveners? Is that what you were saying before? Or
There's
are
a
they supposed
limit of 50 questions per intervener group.
per group?
Per group. And I know Counsel for the Public, or maybe it's Spiniff, is asking for an increase to 100. Somebody's asking for an increase to 100. But so that's also part of it, is you don't want to waste your 50 questions on something that other members of your group might be asking, or on questions that another underground section might be asking, or
There's 10 towns in your group, that's an average of 5 questions per town or something.
it just means there needs to be communication, and that's what worries me, is your questions aren't going to get answered if you're not part of this process early. And as an aside to that, as a citizen of Plymouth, I'd really like to know where you currently stand and feel we have a right to know that. But as long as you're staying quiet on this issue, the process is proceeding, and we don't know, other than the formal statement that was made that the town of Plymouth is opposed.
Right. Mr. Ahern.
Did Franconia have representation there from an attorney? It was the girl, I can't remember her name.
Peter Grody, was that his name, was there from...
There was one woman that was very vocal, that, Chris.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if she was representing the town as the lead person.
I don't know, I have a distribution list, but I can't
Christine
possibly
Fillmore?
find it.
No, she's NHMA. Chris passed away, I believe it's Easton.
Yeah, in Easton, is
Okay,
Easton in
we
the
were,
same?
in Franconia was more similar to Plymouth, where they
Well,
were going through the
this
center of
says
town.
that Bristol, Easton, Franconia,
Right.
Northumberland, Sugar Hill, and Whitefield are all represented by this Christine Fillmore.
Right. So they, I don't know in what capacity she is hired, as, if she is hired to represent the whole group, because the Bridgewater, Littleton, New Hampton, Woodstock group has hired the Mitchell Municipal Group. So different towns are jumping in with different attorneys, and all of these attorneys got together and filed this. Here's another copy of it if you're interested. So it's less the substance of what's happening and more the process that I'm concerned about. So I don't know if anything will come of all of these requests for the intervenor groups to change. But I do know that the applicant's submitted schedule required that discovery be in before these groups are even settled date-wise. So it's absurd.
Yeah, I think they're creating a huge mess, and everybody will get frustrated like we have to some extent, I think, and hopefully will go away. And, yeah, this is just awful. Well, so I guess so is this the group that we're in, all these people, except we're not,
Right, represented.
and we're the only one that has not retained counsel or joined with one of these two?
Well, Bristol is in that. I think these towns are in different intervenor groups because Bristol is in that and New Hampton is in that. But but it's split up by north, middle, and southern groups. And so I thought that the intervenor group that you're in is only Franconia
Down
to
to here.
Plymouth.
That's what I
Right,
thought,
and then
too. Yeah, Northumberland is
Ashland,
in here.
because I'm in a non-abutters group, and that's Ashland to Deerfield.
So now they've
So.
got the groups kind of
Right,
intermingling to get together.
To get
It's
together
like, oh my
to-
gosh.
right.
So,
So those are
and-
clearly people of different interests within their towns.
and what's the objective of this motion, or this request?
To
Modify
modify the
order?
lumping of the interveners.
Okay, they want to
Because
be
they're
in a
down to-
different group or realign
Either wanna
the
be in a
groups,
different
or they
group or
wanna
on
be
their own.
alone.
Right. So some of them, there are a lot of motions like
Yeah.
that.
I sort of had I don't know, I looked at a lot of this stuff and I thought that probably in the end, they aren't gonna change the groups. They're gonna say, the groups are staying the way they are. They'll make a few modifications, let a few people out maybe, but, I mean, I have no idea, but that's just a guess. I'm thinking, they need to neaten this up a little bit. If they let 160 different interveners all pile on them, they're not gonna ever get this done, you know? And they want it done probably, right? I don't mean the Eversource people, but the SEC people. They've all got jobs too, I think, don't they? I mean, I don't, I just can't imagine what's gonna happen here.
Well, even if the groups stay the same, then it's still,
We still have that May 15th deadline.
still, if that's the schedule that's
If
accepted.
that's the,
So,
may I
so,
ask, yeah, I just want to ask Sharon a question. Sharon, did you see a filing by a guy who claimed to be the designated representative for our group of these towns from Franconia down to here, requesting, I think, that the schedule be expanded. There's a bunch of those motions, but I think,
I'd have to go look, Mike. There's just,
but here's what I'm getting at, I guess. I think there is somebody who, at least for the time being, presuming the groups don't change, is the designated representative. I don't remember the
Pappas
name.
is the lawyer, is associated with Roth. Roth is associated with Pat, right.
the Public's Council.
Yes,
Yeah.
Council of the Public, yeah. So I looked for that online, I looked for anything for who might be the representative, and I couldn't find it, but I think you two might be getting emails within your intervener group that are showing what's proposed to be submitted, and it's not online yet, because
I
I
don't
didn't
remember
see
where it
anything
came from.
online.
I haven't seen that since Friday. Because as I said, I've been really busy with other stuff today, and there's been a whole slew of stuff come in.
This was during the week I was gone. It was last week I saw it, so.
So there
I'd have to
might be a
look again.
spokesperson for sure.
Yeah, I don't think
Peter, well, I would think getting a hold of the council that's listed for Franconia would put you in touch with who their temporary or permanent spokesperson is, but they're also arguing that they should be able to have one attorney representing them at one hearing and another at another hearing, and to have it be more flowing in what's expressed in that document. So I don't think anybody is able to come up with one spokesperson that's able to spend time at these all-day meetings every time, unless it's an attorney being paid for that time. So, but that's how you could find out, if you're interested in contact with your intervener group.
Yeah, I can find it. And I wonder, how that, if there was such a person designated, how that was done. And I wonder who, and if there are questions to be answered for this discovery deadline, who submits those? Is that?
That all needs to be coordinated within the intervener group. The intervener group has to be willing to get together, decide on the spokesman, then decide how you're going to divvy up who wants to pursue what questions. Then also part of that is recommending to counsel for the public any expert witnesses that you feel the state ought to hire in order to represent your position, or to be the expert witness that can cross-examine the applicant in, say, if it's unexpected complications of underground transmission down the main street, or heat generated by that transmission line, or projective tax benefits, any of those things. And I know that the intervener group I'm in is talking about trying to set up some sort of limited website or a Dropbox where we can dump the mutual information and share it, and then come up with this list, and then communicate with other intervener groups to make sure we're not overlapping. But the process is such that Peter Roth, the counsel for the public, will hire expert witnesses if enough interveners want him to hire that expert witness. It doesn't have to be at the town's expense.
And that's the Attorney General's office in the state.
Yeah.
I see.
So that's
there's
another
some
reason to get on
money
top
in
of
the
it.
budget for the, yeah.
Right. No, and it is going to be a long process, but everybody's comment is getting up on that website, no matter how absurd. They really are considering everybody's input at this point.
So I guess, one question is, do we remain opposed to the project as it's proposed? Should we vote on that again? It's changed a little since the last time we did this, at least for us, or for the area from Woodstock to here.
I don't know if, at this point, can you do that without a public hearing of townspeople? Or, I mean, maybe you can, but you're in the middle of the
What
process.
we did before. I guess we could change our mind if we wanted to, right? I'm not saying we should, I'm just wondering. Or if we don't want to do that, we should maybe, your point about this May 15th deadline is
Yeah,
good.
that's my
I think
main
we need to decide whether or not we're gonna get in touch with whoever this, or try to figure out who.
I think
It's gonna take some effort, we gotta find out who this spokesperson is, if there is one, find out whether anybody, who in this group has attorneys, whether or not we wanna get involved in having an attorney, whether we want to just participate through the spokesperson, if that ends up being the spokesperson, if he ends up being the spokesperson.
Stephen Whitley. I talked to him a little bit that day that I was in Concord, and he.
I'm sorry, who's?
He was an attorney, Mitchell Municipal Group.
Oh, he's the guy, he's on here. Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly what communities he was representing.
Well, this,
He's the more southern ones in there, New Hampton, it's not. I
but
think.
Littleton is, he's got Woodstock, New Hampton, Littleton, and Bridgewater on this request. But he may have others, I
And
suppose.
I think some of those towns might have approached the lawyers who were right there at that meeting and hired him on the spot to get in with those groups that have lawyers representing them.
He was very much up to speed on anything that needed to get done, and
Yeah, I would be leery of you taking a vote now because I don't feel that you are up to speed on what is happening in your intervenor group, so,
Well, we know kind of what's happening with the project overall, or what it is
Right.
they intend to do, or would like to do. Yes, Paul?
Mr. Chair, you can disclose the fact that our attorney
Yeah?
has been in contact with Northern Pass. In lieu of you, as a board, everything has been running through the attorney, who is yet to meet with you as a board to give you information that he's discovered. You have yet to have that meeting with the town council.
Well, I guess we need to do that then.
It's why you separated yourself and had Eversource contact the attorney directly,
Right.
and he's supposed to be reporting back to you on his findings.
Yeah,
So-
we made this, well, some months ago, we said we weren't gonna talk to them directly unless they came here to a public meeting, the Eversource people. And.
To which they wouldn't do.
Which they wouldn't do, basically. And so did they actually meet with John?
Yes.
So they've met with John and told him something, but we haven't been told what they told him. But that,
but he's not, what is he authorized to do or
nothing,
empowered
To report
do?
back to the
just to
board.
tell us what they said. We're not
Yeah.
talking or negotiating or discussing. I think the idea was that they would tell him what it was they saw happening here, and he would tell us.
And also because we told the public that we would not meet with Northern Pass
Right.
or
But that
Eversource
doesn't,
on any issues unless it was a public meeting.
and I suppose, if they said, I tell you what, we're gonna write you a check for $100 million tomorrow, that might change our mind about how Plymouth feels about this, theoretically.
Actually,
But,
I don't think that would.
well, it wouldn't,
I'm thinking we went to opposition, and, I think we shall remain in opposition until, the town says otherwise, or at least the citizens, but we could also frame our negotiations with Eversource to our benefit, and have that actually nailed down, so that if the project goes forward and it goes down Main Street, we shall have everything down pat as far as what the town's gonna receive in either payment or roads
But this
being
is all-
constructed, or.
This, to me, is all different from kind of what Maggie's talking
But
about.
it's not.
It's
No,
tied
no, I think
together.
it goes
Very
hand
much
in
tied.
hand.
Yeah,
And I believe Bill's correct. I believe that's exactly what the attorney is doing, putting together that framework that would still allow you to be against Northern Pass, but should it all fall apart on everybody that's included, Maggie, that Plymouth would be protected on how it would go through Plymouth.
But as long as you remain quiet on all of this, I think it's pretty tough to believe that there's opposition.
Well, this is
But I
kind
can
of,
also say,
If-
but
Hang on, if indeed there are negotiations with Northern Pass, and you're remaining quiet in the official process, that is not a good perception. Or
Yeah,
not a
well, this
good-
is why what I was saying is, I think these are really two different things, because Maggie is saying we have to deal with these deadlines and dealing with the group, and if we're gonna end up like Les Otten saying, there are no strings attached, but I just got $2 million, you know, that's not, I don't think that looks right. It looks like he got bought off, and I don't think we want to do that. I think we should be paying attention to these dates. We should be maintaining the opposition, but as you say, protecting ourselves for the long run.
But there's also a big difference between negotiating with Northern Pass and coming up with some sort of contract or payment schedule or whatever it is, infrastructure rehab. There's a big difference between dealing with them and trying to enforce whatever they promised you versus getting it into the official proceedings, thank you, so that it is officially, you know, the town of Plymouth is insistent upon these stipulations. You have to get those on file before the trial starts, what you feel are reasonable for stipulations, and that needs to be based on discovery. So if you want the SEC, so if the SEC passes this and gives them the certificate and it happens, and you have stipulations that are in there that are in conjunction with the other towns that are in your intervenor group, the SEC can include the certificate with these stipulations, and then the SEC has to enforce them. So,
If I could just interject, that's
Yeah,
why this
definitely.
process is so important, and it's all the haggling now, but we should be responding to the process, yay, nay, or no opinion. I mean, do you want the schedule expanded? Do you feel that this part, thus and such, the redaction of all the economic data is not appropriate? Just so that we can be in the queue when it comes time for the rest of the process, which would affect Plymouth, whether you're opposed or not.
because if you remain quiet now, you won't have a voice with
Correct.
those stipulations with the SEC. You will lose that power. And that's my concern.
There was one issue, you know, back when we were like, you know, trying to go forward with our opinion on whether or not we should, you know, have a 2-year time frame, or, you know, whether or not the redactions are appropriate or not. I mean, I had an opinion, but we, you know, couldn't like throw in a select board meeting prior to the due date for that, you know, so I don't know how other towns are doing it. Or maybe someone's empowered to make these decisions, and then,
It might be an attorney who's hired and then, you know, poll folks, and maybe they've agreed that, yes, you could do this by an email vote or something, I'm not sure. But these are the same issues I brought up at the March 28th meeting. And at that point, had people been feeling that they were up on it enough to take a vote on the schedule, on the waiver of rules, and on the confidentiality of economic information, those are the three things that were due on the 7th, then there could have been a vote, and that could have been submitted to your intervenor group. So it's just getting ahead of it instead of just being right at it, as in tomorrow is this next hearing, and I can't go.
I'm going, but,
Yay.
and Sharon is as well. I don't know if anyone else is planning on going, or, it's tomorrow, Littleton, or at Loon.
Lincoln, I don't even
Yeah.
know where.
It's at Loon Mountain.
What time?
It's 10 o'clock at the Loon Mountain Resort, 60 Loon Mountain Road, Lincoln.
So the other two items that are being brought up besides the intervenor status tomorrow in Lincoln are the redacted economic statement and the original economic statement. There was an Appendix 43, which was completely blank on Eversource's report of economic benefits and costs for the whole project. They just didn't put in anything. So now they've submitted it, and there are a lot of blank pages still, a lot of blacked out pages. So whether or not they have the right to do that is going to be considered tomorrow. A lot of people have filed, a lot of the interveners have filed motions regarding that, but it's so complex that there aren't nearly as many.
But the Council for the Public or whatever, so there are like unredacted copies that are available for.
Only to him, apparently,
yeah.
yes, right.
And, I mean, I probably wasn't aware of that, section that was completely absent, and now it's,
Yeah, I didn't find it. There were other people at the pre-hearing conference that we went to that said, how can this application be complete? There is no Appendix 43.
There's a page that says Appendix 43, and that's it.
Right.
That is something. Oh, my God.
There's a lot of discussion and questions on that. It's like, they're proceeding ahead, this is a complete application, but groups are saying, well, this entire component is missing.
Right.
You're not answering the statute.
Well, and there are even legislators now who are filing to have the legislature be interveners, even though they've missed the date that the legislature voted on. So it's by an RSA, the deadline for this intervener status, and there's a chunk of
I
legislators.
saw a motion by legislators denied for interveners.
Right.
So that's a different one?
No, that's the same one. It was denied, and now they're appealing that
motion to
denial.
reconsider or something.
Right.
It's getting exponential in the process.
Right. Which I don't think should be discouraging, because I think that it looks like this intervener group has a lot of representation, and it's more deciding what the philosophy is. And I think, personally, I think the philosophy should be one of finding out as much as you can. Personally, I think it should be against, but I'm not representing the town. So that's sorry, got sidetracked. So there's the intervener groups, the confidentiality, and then there's the waiver of the rules. And the waiver of the rules is trying to get at the idea that the SEC put in new rules for public participation and for requirements for the applicant, but it was after the applicant put in their last submission. So then they submitted a little bit more, and they're asking for a waiver of everything else. And I don't know enough about the details of that. But that's going to be addressed tomorrow. The thing that's not on the docket for tomorrow is the actual schedule itself. And on April 1st...
this 1 year versus 2 year
The
thing?
1 year versus 1.5 versus 2.
Uh-huh.
So the applicant is supporting a 1 year schedule where we've already missed the discovery period completely. And Council for the Public is putting in 1.5 years. That discovery period is up May 15th. And that's like 4.5 weeks for all interveners' discovery questions to be submitted. And then SPNF, the Society for the Protection of New Hampshire Forests, their proposed schedule is for 2 years.
Seems to me that with such a complex proposal, they're really trying to squeeze everything into a pretty small box.
Yeah. That's exactly the argument that the proponents of a 2 year schedule are making. Almost all of the public comments that I've seen are in support of the 2 year schedule. The intervener group that I'm in, I wrote the comment for that, or for the statement of position. And I didn't get out into incredibly lengthy detail. Peter Roth's submission for 1.5 years is kind of a compromise, but he details all of the overlapping dates and just the impossibility that it would be to try to do it in a year.
Isn't there's a statute that says 1 year, I think, isn't there? Isn't that where that comes from?
Right, but there's also the very next, whatever you call it, the subtitle underneath it is that you can temporarily waive that at any time during the process.
Mm-hmm.
So anybody trying to fight it is trying to say, now is the time, please, this is not working already.
And there's quite a bit of precedent that they've gone longer than the year. I believe.
Yeah, Peter Roth suggested at the conference that there hadn't been a single one that came in under a year in a long time. And he, in his submission, his schedule proposal, he used Antrim as an example, the Antrim Wind Farm, which was denied, and it was, one site, one property, 30-something megawatts of electricity, and they couldn't even do that in a year. That was 15 months. So he said there's just no way that this could happen in a year. So that will probably be decided soon, but it's not on the docket for tomorrow.
Yeah, the agenda just keeps expanding. I mean, when you get the first information about any anticipated meetings, it's fairly succinct, but as I said, the processes individually are getting kind of exponential, so
Right.
the whole process is taking more and more and more time just to try to narrow it down. It's
And
crazy.
Yeah, and it's not clear if the individual interveners will maintain, what kind of rights they will maintain in terms of if you have a discovery question, do you have the right to cross-examine on that, or probably only the spokesperson? If you have one legal counsel, do they have to stay, does it have to be that legal counsel throughout the process? Probably not, that different representatives can cross-examine, but yeah, but getting in with the group, and even with our group, these questions are being raised by lawyers who happen to be in the group, who aren't our legal representation, but who happen to be in the group.
So, what's our pleasure?
I think we should be expeditious.
Okay.
We should, we should get on the wagon and get going with it.
Paul?
Mr. Chair, I think next Monday, the board should meet with the attorney, find out what he has to say to you. Then we post a public hearing, because we still have time if we get it into the paper tomorrow, so that the public can come before you. In the meantime, between now and Monday, some of you are going to meetings on Northern Pass, you gather your information, bring any questions to the attorney, and then have the public hearing and disclose.
Have you talked to John about whether he can come next Monday?
No,
No, but.
I'm trying to give you the fastest way that you can act on this.
No, I
as a board.
understand, I just wondering.
I
So,
mean,
And I'm not trying to raise alarm bells, I'm
No,
just
no, I
trying to say
understand.
this process is happening.
And I'm just saying, and the board has a process on how you can meet and when you can meet. That's a non-meeting when you meet with your attorney.
right,
So,
yeah, let's see if we can do that, I think that's good. So so presumably we can meet with John next Monday, but, and then in the meantime, you're gonna go to this meeting, I guess, and Sharon's gonna
I'm
go.
just trying to learn everything I can to keep,
and we will post a public hearing.
I'll try to find out who the representative is for our group, if in fact there is one. I think that's one thing we need to know. And then maybe find out from that person what the discovery issues are for them, what they're doing about that, because it sounds like that's the most imminent deadline.
Was someone
I could-
from, I'm sorry,
Yeah, John?
was someone from Sugar Hill and Franconia, did they have an attorney? Because I thought we were with that group.
Well, but see, John, this is well, this thing that Maggie gave us tonight
Yep.
is a motion, it's called a request. And this is for a modification of the order on the groupings, I
Yeah.
guess. And the towns that filed this are,
They've
All over the
requested,
place.
they've requested.
Yeah, they're already in different groups.
yeah, these are different groups than the groups that, and maybe, I haven't read this, so maybe they're trying to put this group as a group and this,
Did you
these,
have,
I brought
well,
two
they're
copies.
not near each other.
did you have an attorney on that other sheet that you had? That was notification, that one there? Wasn't there the one underneath that?
Oh, this one is
Yeah.
a distribution, distribution list. It's everybody that gets the initial mailing. So theoretically on here, somewhere buried in there is whoever is receiving the mail for that intervener group, the email. Except every intervener is on there. So I think Sharon should be on there.
Sharon's on there, yeah.
But there are two different lists going around, so I'm
Oh,
not
Are
sure.
you on there too? On the distribution list at the SEC?
Generally. I see your name on
I get
the,
emails, but I'm not.
can I ask a dumb question?
Yeah, no, you can ask a good question. I know you.
No, this is a dumb one. So yeah, it's nice that these attorneys represent these towns, and the thing that's like, been stuck in my mind, so yeah, we have an attorney. Now, are these guys like pro bono or what?
No.
So how do we like jump on board with these guys if we haven't budgeted, money to approach an attorney, or at least share the costs of an attorney, with our group? And
Some towns have budgeted money expressly for this purpose, and some haven't. Some anticipated it, such as Franconia, just for one example.
so if we go forward and formulate, our questions and assume that we might have 5, or we could have like 50, how do we approach, how do we get them in, in the docket without an attorney representing our town to bring this forward even in a group?
Well, I think
So
the way they
that's-
want you to do it is they want you to work through the designated representative. And each group is supposed to designate a representative, so there's somebody somehow takes on this responsibility.
And that process is just starting to coalesce.
Right.
And it's,
Yeah,
internally, it's all mixed up also.
yeah, and everybody's fighting about whether or not they should really have this group or that group or some other group.
And the way the group I'm in dealt with it is within 10 minutes of meeting as a group, it's, hi, I'm so-and-so, I'll take on scheduling. Oh, by the way, are we all in agreement that we think this isn't enough time? I mean, we literally divvied
you're
it
not-
up right after we met the person and decided,
But
as
you're
a
not
group.
fighting about the
We're not
makeup of the
fighting
group.
into, no.
How many people are in your
There are
group?
7 different representatives, but I'm in a subgroup, the Webster Family Group, that is represented by 7 or 8 different, or that represents 7 or 8 different people. So we circulate everything within our group, and then I circulate it
So are
to
you,
bigger.
is this 7 people a distinct intervenor group?
Yes. Well, 7 couples.
But sort of
Plus
all
one.
related and,
No,
Or they're
we're the
not.
Ashland to Deerfield non-abutters. So some of us have
Okay.
concerns about the river, some of us have concerns about the views in Deerfield, some of us have concerns about the electromagnetic fields. Now we're all over the place.
but there's only 7,
I think it's 7 of
yeah,
us.
or so in the group.
Yeah. And Deerfield has the biggest one, the Deerfield abutters has 17. And so they're all trying to get out of that because it's too big. And towns that feel they have a special issue want to be dealt with alone because they've already hired an attorney to deal with their issues and they want to be represented.
We have
the
a-
best.
We have something of a special issue, of course, which is right down Main Street.
So regarding non-abutters though, how do you know you're not a non-abutter if the project could like go completely in a different direction? Because I guess that's always on the table too.
Right, and that's
So-
one of the arguments that some of the groups of abutters and non-abutters are using to argue with their grouping. We decided in our little group that it wasn't, let's not waste energy on that. We don't have much energy. Let's focus on the
Okay.
substance.
Right, the possibility of an alternate route by default, if that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
That creates a whole other bunch of circumstances, and no one knows
Right.
until it might happen.
And if you would rather see an alternate route, you have to be opposed to begin with, to say that you'd rather see the alternate route. For instance, if you want to see it go under 93, then, yeah, you can be all for going underground, but not down my Main Street. When the legislature, it's already passed, I think, the House.
626, yeah, and it went over the Senate. I don't know if the Senate had a hearing yet or not, but I don't know, it was on
Right,
the
that
calendar.
DOT has recommended the major
Energy corridor.
energy corridor, and the state legislator is voting in support of that. And, so there's something that, to throw on board with that.
Non-mandatory.
Oh, yeah,
Right.
not mandatory. So,
No question?
Well, that's what I was going to bring up, was where the proposed legislation was at this point. And is that why Ashland is trying to file as an abutter, because that might happen?
no, because right now it's scheduled to go slamming right down, all the way down their water and sewage treatment
I'm sorry,
plant.
Holderness.
Yeah, Holderness, yeah.
Some Holderness individuals are trying to file as interveners because of the alternate route.
Okay, which would be 93.
No, which
Oh.
would be the current alternate route proposed is the original route of coming down
The
the
existing
right-of-way
right-of-way.
through
Yeah.
Holderness,
Rich's
down over by
backyard.
Mount
Right.
Prospect,
Yeah.
right.
Okay.
So, and the other reason why we decided not to fight our grouping is because for the current time, non-abutters and abutters seem to have the same status. It may be that later in the process, non-abutters won't have any voice at all. I can't imagine that that will happen to towns. But if you want your say within your grouping, better to jump on earlier and figure out where the other players are in this.
All right, so I think we've got at least the beginnings of the makings of a plan, which is to meet with John as soon as possible. In the meantime,
We'll post a public hearing.
post a public hearing, and then we'll find out who our designated rep is, if there is one, and what we need to do to get any discovery requests in.
Can I assume that the public hearing might be kind of, large? Or, I mean, this might be a small site to have a public hearing, or senior center, that kind of thing, or library? I don't know if the library, it's not a library site any bigger than this.
I don't,
Senior Center, they did that one.
well, didn't we have something on this before? I don't remember.
We've had other meetings on Northern Pass, and they've always fit in this room.
Yeah,
I don't-
and we even had the marijuana store, which was, I think in some respects, more controversial. It was crowded in here, but we had it here.
Okay, I want to have a backup.
You can say I told you so.
I would hope that that hearing is going to be at a time when you really are feeling up to speed about
Well, it's gonna
questions
be at
coming
least-
from the public.
Well, that's why.
We're looking 2 weeks out,
We need to
so.
move
So we're
forward.
probably looking at 3 weeks by the time we get it into the 14-day obligation.
Is that what the notice period is?
So this wouldn't be a regular scheduled select board meeting, it would be a separate hearing.
It could be if you wanted it.
So if we're gonna have to be prepared to do this, if there's this discovery deadline, we're just gonna have to be
Well,
prepared.
we don't know what the discovery deadline is
It's
yet,
gonna
because we
be-
don't know what the schedule is yet.
Right,
The earliest it could,
he is May
Or we
14th.
missed it, yeah.
we've already met, today was it by one schedule. By the intermediate schedule, it's May 15th. And I don't know what the 2-year schedule has it, but I can't believe it would be later than early July. So there may be more time there, but there may not be much. And I just don't want you putting yourself in the position that you feel you have to have a public meeting before you know what's going on in your intervenor group.
Well, if we have the meeting
No, I'm-
tomorrow,
May 9th would be your first meeting in May.
Well, let's do it then, and we're just gonna have to be prepared before that. I mean, I think without having a public hearing, we can proceed as we had planned, which is we're opposed. And we should do what we need to do to keep up to speed and, right? And if people come in here and tell us that they want us to go a different direction, we'll take that into account, right? Isn't that about where we are here? I mean,
I kind of thought we're in opposition, and the public hearing will actually show us the options that we might have, that we might, engage.
Right.
To also put into,
Right, you would use that moment to disclose everything that the attorney's gonna be telling you, all his findings. We should disclose that to the public,
right.
and we haven't done that. We don't have that.
Right.
It's not that we haven't done it, we don't even have it.
Plus, it would be nice to see more economic info from Northern Pass. I mean, because if they're not disclosing all of their economic information and they're making promises, how do you really know what's going on with those promises? Is part of it.
And I can't see
How
having
good is the
the
information that you're gonna be presenting?
the discovery
I think
deadline
that's what the
comes.
attorney's gonna advise you on. I don't wanna speculate what Attorney Radigan is gonna say to you.
I think it also needs to be disclosed to the public if he's representing anybody else, pro or con Northern Pass.
Yeah, I think they do have some
Yes.
involvement with it, and I'm not sure just what it is, but he told me once that they did.
Is he not representing Berlin for it?
Well, no, all we really know is that we were remaining in option no matter what was being given to our attorney.
Is that what you think? I hadn't,
That's what I was told, but I don't know even who told me that, honestly.
yeah, I don't know that either, but,
And so I
Could be.
shouldn't have even,
no, that's okay. I mean, it may very well be true. You didn't say it is true. You just said you
Well,
heard
he
that.
did pose it as in question.
Yeah, and I kind of have a feeling that regardless of whether that's true or not, he does have other, their firm certainly has other involvement with this.
He was one of the associate, or
Yeah.
principals. I believe he was handling Berlin.
Okay.
Chris Bold out of DTC.
I believe Sharon's right.
And they're in favor of it? I suppose.
I can't even remember what, it was some procedural issues.
Is it going through there? It's not even going through there.
it has something to do with a side transmission line or something, why Berlin's in favor. It's not a direct connection that I can recall, but it's some line that
Comes
there's a
off
lot
it.
of power generated there that they want to increase their output, but the current lines can't handle it or something. So it's a totally unrelated issue to Plymouth.
It's a peripheral issue.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, thank you for coming in and-
listening to my concerns.
No,
Thanks, Maggie.
appreciate you coming.
Oh, no, thanks, Margaret, excuse me.
All right, a long time ago, I skipped over committee reports. I have nothing to report. Does anyone else?
Have any meetings?
Yes, I do.
All right, John.
Went to the elementary school. Mrs. White won Special Education Teacher of the Year
Right.
for New Hampshire, which was very good.
I saw that in the paper. Congratulations, Mrs. White.
And the Technology Student Association Awards, they had over 330 students competing from over 200 middle schoolers. Plymouth Elementary School in robotics took first, second, and third place.
Wow.
Teams, testing of engineering, aptitude, math, and science. 3 of the 4 perfect score awards came from Plymouth.
Wow, very impressive.
Inventions and innovations, second place. Technical design, they took first and second place. So they've done really well, and from what I gather, the high school is going to start a program like the elementary has, and these students will just continue on, and they'll
Nice.
be part of the founding group. So they did very well, and I talked to Julie Flynn, and what I'm going to do is she's going to give me a synopsis of what's going on, what they talked to the board about, and then I can just bring up and highlight some of the items. And one date item is May 19th. They're having a spaghetti supper to support the grade 8 trip. They've been doing a lot of fundraisers, and so, if there are people in the community that do not have kids or grandkids in the school, this is supporting their trip to Montreal and Quebec, and of course, the more funds that they raise, the fewer fundraisers they have to do.
Sure.
So,
So what did you say, May 19th
yeah.
at the elementary school?
I'll have to check on that. I believe it is. Yeah, that's where they had it last year, I think. And
$5, $10?
I didn't get. She didn't give me the price. But we need to support the kids. And,
Sure.
It's so for those, my kids are out of the elementary, but it's. I think it's worthwhile for the community. A lot of people are not aware. Sometimes even when my grandkids were going, we didn't find out about anything till the day of it. So I'm going to work with the elementary and start
Good.
giving out some of this information. So
Thanks, John. Anybody else? Got any?
We had a planning board meeting, and essentially Sharon divvied up the remaining master plan, questionnaires. So
Okay.
those dutifully home and keyed them in. So I noticed today that we're up to 901.
That's almost everybody in town.
Just about.
Jeez, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I reached out to the Central New Hampshire Chamber of Commerce, and I'm waiting for a call back, and I know that Chandra Engelbert is the president, so that's, I don't have a phone number, but I've got an email that I'm going to
She's
find out
over
when the
at,
next board meeting is.
At Home Health, what's it called now? I forget.
Pemmy Baker?
Penny Baker, yeah.
Okay.
All right. Anything else? I think we can have a motion to adjourn.
No,
No?
non-public.
Oh, we need a motion for a non-public session. Bye, Maggie. Thanks for coming in, appreciate it.
I make a motion that we go into non-public.
By Mike, second by John. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.